Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to episode 2 of my form check series. I have a total of 4 submissions that I'm going to form check through and just talk about technique, cues, and answer questions and just like help you guys as much as I can. If you want to be in next time's form check video, check out this video where I go over how to submit videos and the whole process. The next deadline will be January 15th. As of now, it's always going to be on the 15th, and we'll try to put out the video in the beginning of the next month. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so first we have this squat video, and one thing she said is that usually a day after her squats, her left knee starts clicking, and she's asking if something's wrong with that and should she invest in knee sleeves. So first of all, your form looks very good and it doesn't break down much between each rep. Like as you get more tired toward like the 3rd and 4th rep, your form doesn't break down, which is very good. The only thing I noticed that you could improve on is on some of the reps, you could control the bottom of your eccentric a little bit more to get more bounce. So it's kind of like a rubber band. When you pull it to the very end, you have to like use more force because the more you pull it, the more tension it has. So you have to like really use a lot of force and control that end before letting it go. So that's kind of the analogy I like to think of when I do squats, like how I should control the eccentric, especially towards the very bottom, and then you like let go of that control and you bounce up. And for your question, I think yes, you should definitely invest in knee sleeves. Not only does knee sleeves make the lift easier because you do get more of that bounce at the bottom because the knee sleeve has elasticity and same like a rubber band, so that's why you get more of a bounce out of it and it makes just the lift easier. But also it's just really important for your knee health and injury prevention. So knee sleeves, like the main point of it is that it keeps your knees warm and like keeps the blood flowing, which is really important for preventing injuries, and also it prevents you from like moving side to side a little bit. And a lot of injuries, like with my injury, it happened when I like shifted side to side too much, like my knees caved in. So knee sleeves can prevent that a little bit. So definitely invest in knee sleeves. If you're serious about lifting or you have like the money, you should definitely go invest in like the thick, long, high quality knee sleeves like SBDs, Inzers, A7s, Stoics. Those are all like very thick and good knee sleeves. If you don't want those, that's still fine. You could get like the thin ones. You can find them anywhere like Amazon, but just like something to wrap over your knees so you have some kind of warmth to keep the blood flowing. And as for the clicking can like mean a variety of things because the knee is like such a complicated hinge joint that you usually don't use clicking as the only symptom to diagnose a problem. Like with me, I did have clicking in my knees and I still do when I have pain, but usually I wouldn't use clicking to be like the one symptom that I use to diagnose something. But if there is clicking, you should be more cautious about things since it's like a warning sign. But if there's no pain, swelling, stiffness, tenderness, or limited range of motion, then it shouldn't be too big a problem. Usually with any knee injury, one of those things would happen. But yeah, your knee clicking, if it's not with the pain and all that kind of stuff, it shouldn't be too big a problem, but stay really cautious about it and stop if you have any pain or that kind of stuff. And last thing that I noticed, this is optional, but it looks like you got pretty long femurs and you have to like travel a lot of distance to hit depth. So usually people with long femurs benefit from heeled shoes to make your tibia and your femur proportions better, and that makes hitting depth easier. So like a heeled shoe might work better for you and make your squats more easier and more natural. So yeah, I hope those helped. Okay, so next we have Noel. Starting with squats, he asked if you have any cues to prevent a good morning squat and also how is the depth. So with this angle, it's really hard to tell with depth. That's why I really don't like taking back angles unless if it's like I have to, because it's really hard to like see where the hip crease is compared to the knee. But it looks like it is depth, but maybe if it's like really strict judging, then it might be on a fence. So if I were you, just go a little bit deeper and you wouldn't have to like worry too much about depth. For squats turning it into a good morning, that is like quite normal for a RP 9.5 lift, which just means you're posterior chain dominant. But if you do get good mornings with RP 8 or under, then that's a problem. So like with most people, when they max out, they will have some kind of form breakdown, and that's not a too big a problem. If you want to like focus on fixing it, or it does happen with under RP 8 lifts, then the first thing I would try to do is to change where you're looking. So right now it looks like you're looking forward on your eccentric, and then on the concentric you look down. So there's like a shift in eyesight. I personally like looking at one place and just sticking to it so there's no distractions. Of course, that's really hard to do when you're maxing out. Sometimes you just like go to your most natural position, but like trying to focus on a point, and that should help keep your back angle more upright because of like how your neck is. So you could try either looking straight forward or you can look down on the floor like 6 feet away from you. That's what I like to do. So like just like 6 to 10 feet away from you on the floor. So just like try to focus on that and like staring at a single place. That might help your back angle be less of a good morning. Second cue I use is to push your feet down into the ground like a leg press, and to push your back into the bar like a hack squat. And with both of these, like hack squats and leg press, both of these exercises do help you use more quads, which is like the opposite of a good morning. So with these two cues, it's like really focusing on using your quads and less of your posterior chain. So feet straight into the ground like a leg press, back into the bar like a hack squat. These cues combine like pushing your upper back from a more horizontal position to a more vertical position, and also like using your quads to open up the space between your quads and your abdominal area, like your core. So at the bottom, you want to open that space up to stand up straight. That will help you rely less on your posterior chain and more on your quads. Another similar cue you can think of is chest up. That's not my favorite cue because you don't use like much of your chest during the squat. It's more of like your back pushing into the bar than like your chest going up. But some people do use that and it works for them. And the last cue you can try is to keep your knees forward for longer in the first half area concentric. So this is pretty hard to maintain for heavy lifts, but with lighter weights you could teach yourself to like keep your knees forward for a longer amount of time instead of like pushing them back and having a good morning squat. But that's just like something to think about, and it's probably not going to work for heavy lifts, but it will teach you to use your quads. But like as I said before, for super heavy lifts, our bodies just resort to the most natural and strongest position, and that is totally fine for max lifts. But if you implement good form and technique on a regular basis, that will slowly fix your muscle imbalances, and then your form on your max lifts will slowly change and be better. But yeah, you shouldn't be too worried about it if it's only happening on like over RP8 lifts. Okay, so next for bench press, you asked how to get cleaner pauses and just how to improve your bench press. So your form actually looks pretty good. You could try thinking of bringing your chest to the bar on the eccentric. So as you lower the bar, think of bringing your chest up at the same time. Since it looks like your chest goes down a little bit as the bar touches your chest, and that should give you a cleaner pause. That's what I use always for a cleaner pause. And also it makes you feel like you reduce your range of motion. So just like think of your chest and the bar meeting in the middle instead of just the bar sinking into your chest. And some variations you can use to practice how to get a cleaner pause. You could do long pause bench where you like pause a long time, but for that you have to make sure you're not sinking the bar. You really want to just hold it there and not let it sink in, because if you sink it in, then it doesn't really help the cleaner pause part. And also you could do t-shirt pause benches. So basically you just lower the bar down until it touches your t-shirt but not your actual body. That teaches you a lot of control because you want to be as light as possible and only touch your t-shirt. So those are some variations that you can try out. And also, have you tried widening out your grip a little bit? That way you could get slightly less range of motion and usually you can lift more. I feel like most people who compete do around middle finger on the rings. That's what I do, and I have a lot of friends that do around that. Just try widening out a little bit and see if that works for you. And other than that, like how to improve on bench, most people respond well to high bench frequency, so benching at least 3 times a week. I do 4 times a week, where the first 2 days are like competition pause days but different rep schemes. The first day is heavier, second day is lighter, third day is like a tempo or long pause bench, and then the fourth day is like either Larson's, close grip, or like some kind of bench variation. And I feel like most people respond well to benching more often. It's not as tiring on your nervous system, but definitely want to ease into it. And lastly, I feel like out of the 3 lifts, bench and squat definitely, you require a lot of muscle mass to be able to press more weight, since it's more of a muscle movement than a hinge movement. So add more chest work, tricep, shoulders, and back accessories. Adding more of those won't hurt. I like hit triceps at least twice a week, back 4 days a week. It's like a lot of volume. Shoulders twice a week, and make sure you go to like at least RP9. So yeah, just like more muscle mass will definitely help out your bench. Okay, and lastly for deadlifts, you asked how to improve speed off the floor. So first of all, some people just pull slow off the floor and like faster at lockout. It just depends on which muscles are stronger and how you hinge the bar up. So it's not like necessarily a big problem. Like everyone is going to have a sticking point somewhere. But anyway, improving speed off the floor is all about pulling the slack out. So you could prep the lift a little bit more by taking more time to pull the slack out, you want to start pulling the bar before the bar starts moving. Like if you're lifting 200 kilos, you want to pull slowly, like from 50 kilos to 100 kilos to 150, 160, 170, 180, 190. And then when you reach the force of pulling 200 kilos, that's when the bar comes up. By slowly pulling the bar up, that's how you reduce the slack. And you can actually practice doing it. Just like load something pretty heavy, but don't pull it off the ground. But keep on using leg drive and keep on pulling, but don't actually pull the bar off the ground. And that really does teach you to pull the slack out. And like the bar rolled forward a little bit at the start, and that meant because you hinged too much at the setup. So try to maintain your position instead of like moving your hips a lot at the setup. And also when the bar passes your knees lock out a little bit too soon, and the bar doesn't seem to be touching your quads. So like that last part of the lift is just like all your back. So you want to keep the bar touching your legs at all times to reduce the torque on your lower back, and that also just keeps you more safe and you can lift more. So try to not lock out your knees so fast and keep them forward for a little bit more. They should lock out faster than your hips, but not too soon. And lastly, this also comes with the point I made before, but it looks like you're hyperextending at the top, which is definitely not necessary and could potentially cause you injury. So you don't need to lean back at lockout. You only need your hips and your knees to lock. I like to think of the cue long arms with deadlifting, like pretending your arms are super long, because that reduces slack and makes the range of motion shorter. That also includes keeping your shoulders forward even at lockout. So you don't need to roll your shoulders back or like lean backwards. All you have to do is have your hips forward. So I think of like squeezing my glutes, lock your knees, and then keep your arms long. You want your hips to be the ones locking out, not your lower back. So you can end the lift with like your shoulders in front of your body. You don't need to, and you shouldn't like extend your back so you're hyperextending. So yeah, I hope these tips help you a lot. Okay, so next we have Yao, and she has this deadlift video and she's asking if she's looking in the right direction, and did her knee and upper body extend at the right time, and is it the right amount, and anything else that could be changed. First of all, it doesn't really matter where you look at, since like that works differently for different people. Like I like looking downwards, but some people like looking forward. I think you looking forward works good for you. And your deadlift kind of looks more like a squat. Like your hips start out pretty low and there's no space between your core, like your abdominal area, and your quads. You want to start with your hips a little bit higher, but I think the main thing causing this is that your plates are really small, so you have to bend down a lot to like get the lift started. If you use standard size plates, or you set your plates like on a box or blocks, so you aren't lifting from such a deficit, I think that will definitely help you with the form. So you're lifting like from standard height and not having to bend down so much to start the lift, because like the most awkward part is at the very bottom where you're not supposed to be lifting with that deficit. And you could try bringing your hands and your feet closer together so you stand shoulder width apart and your arms are like perpendicular with the ground, so they're just like hanging straight downwards, and that should help you lift more and more efficiently instead of gripping wide. So just bring everything more in, and like your hands more in, your feet more in, and that should help. And as for like the actual lift itself, it looks like you're leaning back too much, so try to feel like your shoulders are on top of the bar. So like if the bar is here, you want your shoulders to be on top or even a tiny bit forward when you start the lift. And lastly, your deadlift looks like there's two sections. So like first you extend your knee, and then the second part you extend your hips. So try to make your hip and knee extension even. So to change your lift, you want more hip extension in the beginning and less knee extension. So that means keeping your knees forward for longer and pushing your glutes and your quads more like your hip does. But as I said before, I feel like the main cause of your problems is that you're pulling from such a deficit. So if you can find like standard plates and lift on those, then that'll be really good. Or like put blocks or plates on the ground and then put the weight on that, so you don't have to pull from such a deficit, and that should definitely fix a lot of your problems. And lastly, it looks like you're wearing tennis shoes, which isn't the best thing for lifting. First of all, because there's cushions at the bottom, and like you really want to have a firm stance on the ground, and you want like your feet to be gripping the floor, and you can't really do that on cushions. And also like they're pretty thick, so you're like lifting from even more of a deficit. For a deadlift, we always try to find a shoe with the thinnest sole so we can be as close to the ground as we can, so we can lift less range of motion. So yeah, you want to find something with a flat and thin sole so you have firm contact with the ground. So yeah, I hope those tips help you. And lastly, we have Luna, which I did help last time. She said she didn't have enough time to fix all the problems, so I don't have to reanalyze them again. But she has 2 questions. First of all, for deadlift, she's not sure if her back rounding is too much or is it fine. She doesn't have any discomfort with it, but she tries to be careful. So for the back rounding, if it's not excessive and if there's no pain, then it shouldn't be a problem. And usually the safer rounding is in the upper back, so like in the first part of your back, than the lower back. I think the amount of rounding you do is safe, but it doesn't hurt to try to straighten it up a little bit more to prevent injury. Like being in a rounded position is more injury prone, but it doesn't mean you will get injury. But like I think if you work on the tips I mentioned last time, so like not having your hips rise first like a stiff leg deadlift and using more of your glutes and your quads and pulling the slack out, I think if you do those things, it should help with the back rounding. Your back rounding isn't bad, especially if it's just for higher like RP lifts, but like if it was me, I would keep this like in mind and try to like improve on it if you can. And then for squats, she says she's not 100% she's hitting depth, so it looks like you're slightly above parallel, so not hitting depth. Sometimes what I have to do, I have to like pause the video and like try and zoom in to see if I'm hitting depth or not. But I think a tip that can help you hit depth more is to move your hips back a little bit more and think of like your knees going up, like not forward too much but just up. And also you could try heeled shoes, like try squatting on some thin plates and seeing if that helps with depth. But yeah, I don't think it's depth, but it's very close, so you just want to sink it a little bit more. And yeah, so that is it for this week's video. Thank you everyone who submitted videos. If you want to be featured in next time's form check videos, check out the instructions down below. Again, next deadline is January 15th. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed and I hope these tips help you guys. If you have any other more questions, you guys can email me or just leave a comment on the video. Don't forget to like the video if you did, and subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you don't want to miss another of my videos. Thank you for watching and I'll see you guys soon.
My heart is filled with joy to be in your presence, Lord.